last year, Louisville's big arrival moment, the moment when the nation really started to take them seriously after kind of soft schedule to start the season that Jeff Brom did a good job of, making waste of. They beat Notre Dame. We said, okay, Cards, let's go. So now Notre Dame gets the other end of this home and home, and Louisville again has just kind of been going through its business, taking care of opponents they are favored to beat. So right now, Notre Dame, I would say clearly more battle tested, but as you look at Notre Dame, Louisville, Danny, what's got your attention about this matchup?
So clearly Riley Leonard still, I'm not convinced that their problems are fixed throwing the football, and he's an incredible runner. It's been dynamic. I think that's the matchup I'm sort of watching, is what Louisville can do with him and his legs. Can they turn him into, force him into having to be a passer? And on the flip side, I'm curious to see what Tyler Shuck does in this game versus Notre Dame's defense, which is by far the best one they faced, maybe one of the best ones they face all year, who really has kept people believing, myself included, that Notre Dame, maybe could claw their way back into the championship race, into the playoff race. So what does Brom do to put Tyler Shuck in good situations? Because he's a really good offensive mind who usually game plans really well for specific defenses. Can he get to Corey Brooks going and Tyler Shuck and kind of figure out a way on the road to put up some points? Because the defense, I think, at Louisville has been pretty good quietly, but they haven't been tested like this, but I think it is it's a very one-dimensional test.
Fun little fact here. It's a pointless fact, but it's a fun one. Friend of mine, grew up with him. Big Notre Dame fan. Always constantly texting me his angst about his Fighting Irish. Sent me a text yesterday asking me if I knew where Riley Leonard was ranked among PFF grades on Notre Dame quarterbacks this year. He doesn't understand sample size very well. Love him, but he's not that great on it. But he pointed out that Riley Leonard currently has the third highest PFF grade among Notre Dame quarterbacks. Yes. And he said that the highest overall offensive grade of any Notre Dame player on PFF is Steve Angeli. If you haven't figured it out yet, my friend does not really like Riley Leonard and does not really trust where this offense is going to go with him at QB. I try to calm it down, but what are you going to do? But to his point, Notre Dame ranks 90th in offensive success rate so far this year. They are 101st in EPA per dropback. They are 130th in explosive pass rate. They are a one-dimensional offense. And going into this game, that one dimension was great against Purdue. It worked well enough for them against Texas A&M, and it worked well enough for them against Miami, but we saw the limitations against Northern Illinois. How good is this Louisville defense in reality? Because we've only seen them play one actual game, but the one game that they did play was against a Georgia Tech team that runs the ball pretty well. And even after that, Louisville still ranks 7th in EPA per rush allowed on defense. Against the pass, they ranked 3rd in pressure rate. So this has been a very good Cardinals defense to start the season. If they are able to take away the only dimension that Notre Dame's offense has shown, do the Irish have a counterpunch? That is going to be the interesting angle to me here, because we know Notre Dame's defense is good, but Notre Dame's defense was good last year, and Louisville was still able to put a hurting on them, as far as offense. So it's going to be – it's an interesting game because, honestly, I think Louisville's better. I just can't say it for sure because of the competition they faced, but I just like them better than I like this Notre Dame team.
Yeah, some of their performance against Georgia Tech was concerning, and some of that was fluky, and some looked pretty good, right? So, the pass that Georgia Tech hit before halftime was ridiculous. All right, it happens, sure. Yeah. But they also had a lot of penalties that had big gains called back. They could have scored 50. Not 50. They could have scored low 40s to mid 40s against Georgia Tech had they not had, some big gains called back for some holding penalties and whatnot. But they didn't look super buttoned up against Tech. And as Tom mentioned, that was their first real competition they faced. And Tech's passing defense is pretty atrocious. The best game they have is against the Noles. And the Noles have one of the worst passing games, not only in the Power 5, but in the entire country. Right? Really pretty bad stuff. So Syracuse lit them up. And Syracuse Syracuse has 2 good passing games. Ohio, when Ohio was missing 3 starting defensive backs, and Georgia Tech. And Syracuse passing game looked like it looked poor against Stanford on Friday night. So Stanford's passing game may not be any good at all. They might have just played 2 pretty bad passing defenses, right? So we don't really know exactly how good this Louisville passing game is. I think it's probably pretty good. I personally think that if for some reason Cam Ward doesn't finish as the best quarterback in the ACC, for me, it's easy. It's Shuck. Like, I think Cam Ward's the best, but to me, Shuck's the second best quarterback in the league. And I would take him over a lot of quarterbacks in the SEC. And I would take him, I think, over all of the quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So I like Tyler Shuck. I mean, I'm probably too high on him, but he needs to play really well because Louisville's run game has not been very good this year. And Notre Dame's defense is like orders of magnitude better than anything Louisville has faced so far. So we don't really know, like, how well do these receivers get open? Like, I like Ja'Cory Brooks, but we also have a pretty good sample set that Ja'Cory Brooks wasn't that great at Alabama, right? You know, Chris Bell is a nice player, but like, is he special? I don't know. But to me, it's quarterback edge, and I think a pretty huge head coaching edge. I mean, Braum is one of the best head coaches in the sport for my money. Marcus Freeman on game day is not. So I do like Louisville.
Yeah, that you mentioned it. That the matchup between Brooks and Bell, and then against Benjamin Morrison and Jordan Clark, is going to be pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah. Is Christian Gray going to play?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Notre Dame fans in the chat, is Christian Gray going to play?
I do.
Michael.
But to Tom's buddy's point, and I think a lot of Notre Dame fans, they have turned on Riley Leonard in a hurry. And it was when I sent you guys some stuff. We broke it down before they played Purdue, where they obviously had a massive offensive explosion. But he's still a quarterback that is not comfortable with pretty common basic reads within the system, like where to go quickly with the football. And it's hard to watch, honestly, sometimes watching the passing concepts that he's trying to. And I don't know if it's just something that he's maybe a slow processor, or it generally is because he's first year in the system and he's still learning it and they're kind of figuring things out. But it's definitely, like, I get the frustration, but he's still an incredibly dynamic runner. I mean, it's kind of like Michigan's offensive attack, but a little bit better, right? I mean, they're just going to run the football and they have a little bit better passer.
I love when I really feel like we're trendsetters sometimes out here. You just right out of Bud. This is like right out of the old school SEO book. I did a quick Google search while we're sitting here looking for Colin Lacey. Colin Lacey, very talented wide receiver who's been dealing with injury issues. And sure enough, man, there's a lot of will Colin Lacey play against Notre Dame headlines.
Do we think it matters that much?
He hasn't, because I can't say. He is a talented body. If he's available, it's better than if he's not available. I cannot say, because it's not as though we've got this huge sample set to say like, oh my gosh, well, we're expecting this, but then it's only going to be this. So it doesn't change my handicap one way or the other. If I'm a Louisville fan, I undoubtedly want as many talented pass catchers available if he plays.
Well, especially if Notre Dame is thin in the secondary, then perhaps spreading them out makes some sense. I don't think this Louisville offensive line is improved from last year.
No.
I know that was sort of the narrative coming out of a lot of the preseason coverage in magazines, and it's hard to know, right? Like nobody bats 1,000 in the preseason, but from what I've seen, I don't think they're particularly awesome. But I think Shuck and Braum is a nice combo. And if you're Notre Dame, you are scared that those guys are going to scheme up like 14, and they're going to probably like score another 10 to 14 on, I don't say earned stuff, but just stuff that's not wide open. They opened this total 48.5. It took like a second of over money, and then it's just been nothing but under since. And I think that's the right direction.
I agree.
I will say, I mean, again, it hasn't, to your point, like they haven't played anybody worth really knowing, but offensive line wise, when it comes to time before pressure allowed, Louisville does ranked 5th so far this season. Now, run blocking, I'm not nearly as confident in them.
I will say they also played a Jack State team that Coastal put up a 50 burger on.
That does help, yes.
I mean,
it's so hard to look at the so how about this? Louisville's defense is, to the underpoint, Louisville's defense is legit.
Yeah.
Should be.
Also, they knocked out the quarterback from Austin Peay.
But so many of the pieces on that defense, like it was a big portal class, but so many pieces on that defense are still back from last year.
Mm-hmm.
They have had to reload and reset at a lot of places with this team, but returning production on the defensive side of the ball is pretty solid, where I think you can still expect that group to be salty.